Hey, quick note before we start. This video is for education and entertainment, and it's built on a genuinely alarming stack of research. Alright, let's dig. Right now, sitting inside your skull is the single most expensive object your body owns. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight, a small, soft 3-pound lump. And that little lump is burning through roughly 20% of all the energy your body uses. A fifth of every calorie you eat is going right now to run the thing you're thinking with. It's the most power-hungry organ you've got by a mile, and it's guzzling fuel even when you feel like you're doing absolutely nothing. And here's the thing about a luxury that expensive. Somebody has to pay for it. Nothing in biology is free. So the question that haunted researchers for years was simple and brutal. How on earth do we afford this brain? And it's even hungrier while it's being built. In young children, when the brain is growing fastest, it can devour close to half of the body's entire resting energy, an astonishing share to hand to a single organ. That's part of why human kids grow so slowly compared to other animals. So much of a child's fuel is being diverted upstairs into building the brain that there's less left to grow the body with. We are, from the very start, animals that pour ourselves into our heads because our brains really are absurd. Compared to just about any other animal our size, the human brain is wildly, disproportionately huge, far bigger than the body it's attached to has any business carrying. Building it takes energy. Running it takes even more. An organ like that should come with a crushing fuel bill, an appetite so large it ought to blow up our whole metabolism. And yet, this is the strange part, our overall energy budget, the calories a human body burns at rest, wasn't thrown wide open in the obvious way you'd expect for something that greedy. It stayed within a fairly ordinary range for a primate our size. Which means if the brain is spending far more, something else in the body must be spending far less. Somewhere there's a cut. The bill got paid by taking the money from somewhere else. So where's the cut? What did we give up to afford our minds? The most famous answer is one of the most elegant ideas in all of human evolution, and it points at an organ you would never suspect: your gut. Here's the logic, and it's beautiful. Just like the brain, your digestive system, your stomach, and especially your intestines, is metabolically expensive. Guts are costly to build and costly to run. They're busy, hungry organs. Now compare us to our relatives. Look at a gorilla. A gorilla has a huge barrel-shaped belly, and packed inside it is an enormous gut, a vast fermentation tank built to process gigantic quantities of tough, low-quality leaves. Leaves are terrible fuel, hard to break down, barely any calories per mouthful. So a leaf eater needs a massive, expensive digestive system running around the clock just to pull enough energy out to stay alive. And a gorilla, for all its size and power, has a brain far smaller than ours. Big gut, small brain. Now look at us. Our guts, and particularly the large intestine, the part that does the heavy fermentation, are strikingly small for a primate of our size, much smaller than a gorilla's, much smaller than you'd ever predict. We have flat bellies and short guts and enormous brains, and that inverse relationship is exactly the clue. The idea, first laid out clearly by two researchers named Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, is called the expensive tissue hypothesis, and it says, roughly this: we paid for our expensive brains by shrinking our expensive guts. The energy a gorilla pours into a giant digestive system, we redirected into a giant brain. One costly organ traded for another. You are, in a sense, an animal that gave up its big stomach to buy a big mind. But that immediately raises the next question, and it's the good one. You can't just shrink your gut and hope for the best. A smaller digestive system can't handle a gorilla's diet. It can't process mountains of raw leaves. So if our ancestors were going to get away with a smaller gut, they needed better fuel. They needed food that was richer, denser, packed with more calories per bite, and easier to break down. Food that didn't require a giant fermentation vat to get anything out of. So what changed about the human diet? A few things, and they stack. First, our ancestors started eating more energy-rich food, including more meat and fat, which deliver far more calories per mouthful than leaves ever could. A diet with meat in it is a diet you can survive on with a smaller gut. But there's a second change that may matter even more, and it's one we'll dig into properly in the next video, so I'll just plant the seed here. Cooking. When you cook food, you're essentially starting digestion outside the body. Heat breaks down tough fibres and proteins before the food ever reaches your stomach, unlocking calories that raw food keeps locked away. A cooked meal is pre-digested calorie for calorie compared to a raw one. And an animal that cooks can get away with a much smaller, cheaper gut because the fire is doing some of the work the intestine used to do. Better food is what made the smaller gut survivable, and the smaller gut is what freed up the energy for the brain. It's a gorgeous chain when you lay it out. Richer diet and cooking make food easier to process. Easier food means we can afford a smaller gut. A smaller gut frees up a big chunk of our energy budget. And that freed up energy gets poured into growing and running a bigger brain. Each link makes the next one possible. The fire in the hearth and the thoughts in your head connected across a couple million years by nothing more than an accountant's logic about where the calories go. So, because this channel is constitutionally incapable of leaving a tidy story alone, let's complicate it. Because the expensive tissue hypothesis, as clean and beautiful as it is, has taken some serious hits. When researchers went and tested the idea across a huge range of other mammals, checking whether in general animals with bigger brains have smaller guts, they largely didn't find that trade-off. Across the mammal world, big brains and small guts just don't reliably go together the way the simple version predicts, which means the neat little story of we swapped gut for brain, one for one, probably isn't the whole truth, at least not as a universal law. Something more complicated was going on. And when researchers looked harder at humans specifically, the gut turned out not to have paid the whole bill by itself. There seemed to be other places the energy came from. For one, humans are strikingly under-muscled compared to other apes. A chimpanzee is, pound for pound, far stronger than you, and that leaner, lower-powered body burns less energy, freeing some up. For another, we carry more body fat than other apes, a built-in reserve that helps buffer a hungry brain through lean times. There's even evidence that we didn't only rearrange a fixed budget. We may have raised the whole budget, evolving a faster metabolism that takes in and burns more energy than other apes do. And on top of all that, we got better at sharing. Once a species starts feeding its children, feeding its hunters, pooling food across a group, the entire energy equation changes, and an expensive brain becomes something the group can carry together instead of something each body funds alone. The brain wasn't bought with one single sacrifice. It was bought by rebalancing the whole budget: gut, muscle, fat, metabolism, and the invention of sharing. But notice that even as the details get messier, the core insight only gets stronger, not weaker. Whatever the exact mix, smaller gut, less muscle, more fat, faster metabolism, better food, shared meals. The fundamental fact stands. Our brain was not a free upgrade. It was a purchase. An expensive, demanding, calorie-hungry purchase. And our whole biology had to be reorganized to afford it. Evolution didn't just hand us a bigger brain and wish us luck. It made us pay and pay and pay, in the size of our stomachs, in the strength of our muscles, in a total dependence on high-quality food and on each other. The mind came at a cost written into every other part of the body. And that flips how most of us instinctively think about our own intelligence. We treat the big human brain as a straightforward triumph, the obvious best feature, the thing that made us the winners, pure upside. But from the body's point of view, that brain is a liability as much as a gift. It's a greedy, fragile, fuel-guzzling organ that demands a constant, rich supply of energy and starts dying within minutes if that supply is cut. Most animals never evolve a brain like this, and it's not because they couldn't stumble into the mutations. It's because a brain this expensive is usually a terrible deal. It costs more than it's worth. It only paid off for us because a very particular set of circumstances, our diet, our fire, our hands, our sharing, made the bill just barely affordable. We didn't get smart because being smart is obviously great. We got smart because for one lucky lineage, we finally found a way to pay for it. There's a real vulnerability hiding in that, and it's worth sitting with. Because a brain that's expensive means we are utterly, permanently dependent on a steady stream of high-quality calories in a way most animals simply aren't. A cow can live on grass. A gorilla can live on leaves. You cannot run this brain on grass and leaves. There aren't enough calories in them to keep the lights on up there. We are locked in by our own biology to needing rich food and to all the effort and cooperation and cleverness it takes to get it. The organ that makes us so capable is also the organ that makes us so needy. Our greatest strength runs on our greatest hunger. Let's zoom all the way out. Every thought you have ever had was paid for. Every daydream, every memory, every word of this sentence you're taking in is being funded right now by a fifth of your body's entire energy supply. Energy that had to be freed up across millions of years by shrinking your ancestors' guts, trimming their muscle, changing what they ate and learning to cook it and learning to share it. Your mind is not a free gift sitting on top of your body. It's a luxury your whole biology strains to support, moment by moment, meal by meal. You are, quite literally, an animal that rebuilt its entire body around the cost of thinking. Now, the honesty this channel runs on, the exact accounting is still being argued. The simple gut-for-brain swap doesn't fully hold up, and researchers are still working out precisely how the human energy budget got rearranged. How much came from the gut, how much from muscle, from fat, from a faster metabolism, from cooperation. That part is unfinished and genuinely debated, but the thing underneath it isn't in doubt. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive. Our bodies pay a real and heavy price to run it, and the story of how we got smart is inseparable from the story of how we found the energy to afford it. The bookkeeping is contested. The bill is very, very real. So the next time someone talks about the big human brain like it was a free jackpot, the obvious prize handed to the cleverest ape, you'll know the truth is stranger and more expensive than that. That brain cost us. We paid for it in the size of our guts and the strength of our bodies, in a total dependence on rich food and on each other. It was never a gift. It's the most expensive thing we ever bought, and we are still paying the instalments every single day, one meal at a time. All the sources are in the description. The original expensive tissue hypothesis, the comparative studies across mammals that complicated it, and the work on muscle, fat, metabolism, and food sharing in the human energy budget. Go read them because the argument over how we paid for our brains is one of the best in all of human biology. And remember, the ancestors who first traded gut for brain, who first cooked a meal and shared it around a fire, are your family. So the next time your stomach growls, spare a thought for the strange deal they struck on your behalf, and keep digging. See you in the next one.